Hi guys, tonight I want to invite you into a quiet place between moments, between breaths, between worlds. Imagine a bridge that doesn't just cross a river, but gently connects two different ways of living, two different understandings of time and hope. It's a place where footsteps echo softly, where memories drift like mist, and where every step feels meaningful. Before we begin, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments, whether you're listening from the U.S. Late in the evening, from Europe in the deep hours past midnight, or from somewhere else in the world as the early morning light begins to rise, you're very welcome here. Settle into a comfortable position, let your shoulders relax, slow your breathing, and allow the outside world to fade gently away. When you're ready, let's step quietly into the story together. The bridge appeared first as a feeling before it ever became a shape. Long before anyone could point to it and say where it began or ended, people sensed it in the air, an almost invisible calm that settled over the valley at dawn. The river below moved slowly, carrying reflections of pale sky and drifting clouds, its surface broken only by the occasional ripple of a fish or a falling leaf. The bridge stretched across it with patient stillness, built of weathered stone and darkened wood, smoothed by decades of wind, rain, and careful footsteps. It did not demand attention, yet it held it all the same, as if it understood the importance of quiet strength. In the early mornings, when the world felt half awake, the bridge seemed to breathe. Cool air brushed against its railings, carrying the scent of water, moss, and distant fields. The stones beneath were cold but steady, offering reassurance to anyone who crossed. On one side of the river lay a village that moved slowly, guided by routines passed down through generations. Bells marking time, doors opening at the same hours, familiar faces greeting one another with gentle nods. On the other side was a place less defined, where paths wandered, where travelers paused only briefly, and where stories arrived from faraway lands like whispered secrets. Those who stepped onto the bridge often did so without realizing why. A young woman carrying a basket of bread might feel an urge to stop midway, gazing down at the water as if listening for something. An old man leaning on his cane would rest there, letting memories surface, of crossings made long ago, of choices taken and not taken. The bridge welcomed them all without judgment. It held their weight, their worries, their hopes, and their silences, absorbing everything into its quiet presence. As the sun rose higher, warming the stones, a sense of balance settled in. The bridge was not just a path from one place to another. It was a pause, a gentle in-between where the past and future could exist together for a moment. Standing there, people often felt lighter, as if something unseen was being shared between the two shores. And though most continued on after a while, each carried away a subtle calm, unaware that the bridge had quietly given them exactly what they needed. As days passed, the bridge became a quiet witness to the rhythms of life flowing around it. Morning light spilled across its surface like warm honey, settling into the shallow grooves carved by countless footsteps. Birds often paused on the railings, tilting their heads as if listening to the soft murmur of the river below. Their songs drifted across the water, blending with the gentle creak of wood expanding in the sun. Everything about the bridge invited slowness, encouraging those who crossed to match its unhurried pace. From the village side, children sometimes ran toward it, laughter bouncing ahead of them. Yet the moment their feet touched the first stones, their energy softened. They slowed without knowing why, their voices dropping to whispers. as if the bridge itself asked for quiet respect. Some would peer through the gaps in the railing, watching the water slide past and imagining it carried messages from faraway places. Others would sit for a while, legs dangling carefully, feeling the steady presence beneath them and sensing a safety that felt older than words. Travelers approaching from the opposite shore often arrived tired, dust clinging to their boots and shoulders heavy with long journeys. For them, the bridge was a kind of rest before arrival. Midway across, many paused, leaning into the railing, letting the breeze cool their skin. Thoughts that had tangled their minds began to loosen, unraveling slowly. The sound of the river seemed to carry away worries, leaving behind a quieter clarity. Even burdens that could not be forgotten felt lighter for having been shared with the stillness. At twilight, when the sky shifted through shades of amber and blue, the bridge glowed softly. Lanterns from the village reflected on the water, stretching into long, trembling lines that met the darkening current. This was the hour when the bridge felt most alive, holding both the warmth of the day and the promise of night. People crossing then often felt a gentle pull toward reflection, remembering moments of hardship they had survived, and hopes they still carried carefully within. The bridge never spoke, yet it offered something rare, a sense of being held while moving forward. It reminded those who crossed that struggle and peace could exist together, that one did not cancel out the other. With each quiet step, it guided them onward, never rushing, never resisting, just steady, patient, and endlessly present between two worlds. Night settled slowly over the valley, as if it, too, respected the bridge's gentle way of doing things. The sky deepened into a soft indigo, and the first stars appeared like careful pinpricks of light. The river below darkened, its surface now a moving mirror of the heavens. In this quiet hour, the bridge seemed to hum with a low, comforting energy, almost like a lullaby woven from stone, water, and air. A thin mist often rose from the river at night, drifting upward and curling around the bridge's supports. It softened the edges of everything it touched, blurring the line between what was solid and what was only suggested. Those who crossed at this hour felt as though they were walking through a dream. Footsteps sounded muted, wrapped in fog, and even breathing seemed to slow in response. The world narrowed gently to the rhythm of step after step, breath after breath. Some nights a lone figure would cross under the stars, guided only by the faint glow of lantern light or moonshine reflecting off the stones. These travelers carried private thoughts, unspoken grief, quiet hopes, decisions waiting to be made. Midway across, many felt a surprising sense of release, as if the bridge invited them to set down their worries, if only for a while. The cool night air brushed their faces, steady and kind, reminding them they were not alone in the vastness. From the village side, the sounds of life softened into distant murmurs, doors closing, voices fading, a final bell marking the hour. From the far shore came only the hush of fields and forests, the occasional call of an unseen owl. The bridge held these sounds together without conflict, blending them into a single peaceful harmony. Standing there, one could feel how two different worlds leaned gently toward one another, meeting in the middle without strain. When the crossing was complete, people often glanced back once more. The bridge remained, calm and unchanged, bathed in moonlight and mist. It asked for nothing in return, yet it left each traveler slightly transformed, more settled, more aware of the quiet strength within themselves. And as the night deepened, the bridge continued its silent vigil, holding space for every journey yet to come. Morning returned with a pale silvery light that crept gently across the valley. Dew clung to the bridge like a delicate veil, each droplet catching the sunrise and turning it into 1,000 tiny sparks. The air was cool and clean, filled with the scent of wet stone and grass. In these early hours, the bridge felt freshly awakened, as though it had quietly rested through the night and was now ready once more to carry the day's stories. An elderly woman was often among the first to cross at dawn. Her steps were slow and measured, guided by a lifetime of habit rather than haste. She paused near the center, resting her hands on the railing, feeling the cold seep pleasantly into her palms. From here, she could see both shores clearly, the village roofs catching the first light and the open land beyond the river stretching into soft, endless possibility. She breathed deeply, letting the stillness fill her, remembering loved ones she had walked beside long ago. As the sun rose higher, light warmed the stones, chasing away the last of the chill. The bridge responded with faint creaks and sighs, small sounds of wood and iron adjusting to the day. These noises were never sharp or alarming. They were reassuring, like the settling of a familiar house. Anyone who crossed could feel it beneath their feet, a quiet promise that the bridge would hold just as it always had. On certain mornings, a thin line of fog lingered, parting slowly as people walked through it. Faces emerged and faded, steps appearing and disappearing, as if the bridge were gently revealing and concealing lives in turn. This soft uncertainty made each crossing feel intimate, personal, like a conversation held in whispers. Even those burdened by worries found their thoughts slowing, shaped by the steady rhythm of the walk. By mid-morning, the bridge stood fully in the light, connecting not just two places, but two moods of the day: early reflection and growing energy. It carried farmers, travelers, messengers, and dreamers alike, offering the same calm support to each. And though every person brought their own story, the bridge accepted them all equally, holding together the fragile balance between where they had been and where they were going. As the seasons slowly turned, the bridge changed with them, yet never lost its quiet purpose. In spring, new life gathered around its edges. Small green shoots pushed through cracks in the stone, and vines traced delicate patterns along the railings. The river swelled with fresh rain, its voice a little louder, a little more eager, as if celebrating renewal. Crossing then felt hopeful, filled with the gentle promise that even long-standing things could welcome change. Summer brought warmth that settled deep into the wood and stone. The bridge absorbed the sun during the day and released it slowly in the evening, so that walking across at dusk felt like stepping through stored sunlight. Cicadas hummed from the nearby trees, their song steady and hypnotic. People lingered longer in these months, leaning against the railings, watching the water shimmer and drift, letting time stretch comfortably around them. In autumn, the bridge wore color. Leaves gathered in soft drifts along its edges, gold and rust and deep red. Each step sent a quiet crunch beneath foot, a gentle reminder of passing time. The air turned crisp, carrying the scent of earth and fading warmth. Those who crossed in this season often felt reflective, thinking of things completed, of chapters closing with grace rather than regret. The bridge held these thoughts just as it held the fallen leaves, without judgment. Winter arrived quietly, dusting the bridge with frost and, sometimes, a thin blanket of snow. The river slowed, dark and steady, while the world grew hushed. Footsteps became careful, deliberate, but the bridge never faltered. Its stones, chilled but strong, offered stability when everything else felt uncertain. In the silence, crossing felt deeply personal, almost sacred, as if each step affirmed trust in the bridge and in the unseen strength within oneself. Through every season, the bridge remained constant, adapting without losing itself. It taught those who noticed that endurance did not require rigidity, and that holding two worlds together meant welcoming change while staying true to one's foundation. And with each crossing, a quiet lesson was carried forward, woven gently into the rhythm of everyday life. There were moments when the bridge carried more than footsteps, moments when it held emotions so heavy they seemed to sink into the stone itself. On quiet afternoons, when the river flowed lazily and the air felt thick with warmth, people sometimes arrived carrying news they did not yet know how to share. Their steps slowed as they reached the bridge, shoulders tight, breaths shallow. The bridge met them with steady patience, offering a place to pause before the weight of the world continued on the other side. A young man once stood there for a long while, fingers curled around the railing, eyes fixed on the moving water below. He had come from the far shore, where his future felt uncertain and unfinished. The village ahead promised answers, but also questions he feared. As he stood, the breeze lifted the edge of his coat, and the bridge's solid presence beneath his feet reminded him that uncertainty did not mean collapse. Slowly his breathing eased, and when he finally moved again, his steps were quieter, more assured. Not all struggles were so visible. Sometimes it was simply exhaustion, a tired body, a mind worn thin by too many choices. For these travelers, the bridge offered a rare stillness. The sound of water, the rhythm of their own steps, and the soft creak of wood worked together like a calming chant. Even if nothing in their lives changed by the time they reached the other side, something within them settled, finding a small pocket of peace. The bridge also knew joy, though it held it gently. Soft laughter sometimes echoed across it, carried by couples walking side by side, or by friends sharing stories that flowed as easily as the river below. These lighter moments did not replace the heavier ones, they balanced them. The bridge understood that holding two worlds together meant embracing both sorrow and happiness, allowing them to coexist without conflict. As the day faded into evening, the bridge remained, unchanged yet enriched by every crossing. Each step, each pause, each silent moment added to its quiet history. And though it never showed the weight it carried, the bridge grew stronger through the lives it supported, teaching in its own wordless way that even the heaviest journeys could be borne with calm and care. Over time, stories about the bridge began to drift through the valley, shared in low voices and gentle conversations. Some said it had been built by hands, guided not just by skill, but by intention, a desire to create something that could last beyond a single lifetime. Others believed the bridge stood where it did because the land itself needed it, as if the river and the shores had quietly asked to be joined. No one argued over which story was true. The bridge seemed to hold room for them all. On quiet afternoons, children from the village would sit at its edge, listening to elders speak of days long past. They heard about storms the bridge had endured, waters rising high enough to touch its underside, winds fierce enough to rattle every beam. Yet each time the bridge remained. These stories were not told with drama, but with calm respect, as lessons about patience and resilience. The children traced the stone with their fingers, imagining the countless lives it had supported before their own. Travelers added their own tales as well. Some spoke of arriving at the bridge lost and leaving with a sense of direction they hadn't expected. Others remembered crossing it during moments of deep change, departures, returns, beginnings they hadn't yet named. The bridge appeared in their memories not as a grand monument, but as a quiet turning point, a place where something shifted gently inside them. At night, when the valley slept, the bridge seemed to gather these stories like soft echoes. Moonlight rested on its surface, and the river whispered endlessly below. If one listened closely, it almost felt as though the bridge remembered every step, every pause, every silent wish made in its center. Yet it held these memories lightly, never burdened by them. In this way, the bridge became more than stone and wood. It was a keeper of moments, a shared space where lives briefly touched and then moved on. And as new stories continued to arrive, the bridge stood ready, offering the same steady presence it always had, calm, enduring, and quietly full of meaning. There were times when the bridge felt almost invisible, blending so seamlessly into the landscape that it seemed as though it had always been there, as natural as the river itself. On such days, clouds drifted lazily overhead, their reflections stretching and dissolving in the water below. The bridge did not compete with the beauty around it. Instead, it framed it, offering a gentle path through the scene without demanding attention. People crossing during these moments often felt a deep sense of belonging. Their steps matched the slow pulse of the valley, and worries that had followed them from far away loosened their hold. The bridge asked for nothing more than presence, to feel the cool stone beneath the soles of their shoes, to hear the river's steady murmur, to notice how the air changed as they moved from one shore to the other. It was enough simply to be there. Sometimes a soft rain would fall, barely more than a mist. Droplets gathered on the railing and slid down in thin, shimmering lines. The sound of rain on wood and stone blended with the river's voice, creating a rhythm that lulled the mind into stillness. Those who crossed in the rain often felt wrapped in a quiet cocoon, as if the world had narrowed to just the bridge and the gentle music around it. In these moments, the boundary between the two worlds felt especially thin. The village behind and the open land ahead seemed less like separate places and more like parts of a single, continuous story. The bridge held them together effortlessly, reminding those who crossed that division was often softer than it appeared, and that connection could be found in the simplest of spaces. When the rain faded and the clouds lifted, the bridge remained unchanged, carrying the freshness of the moment in its scent and silence. Each crossing left behind a trace of calm, woven invisibly into the air, waiting to be felt by the next traveler who stepped onto its steady path. As the years unfolded, the bridge became a place where decisions quietly formed, not sudden, dramatic choices, but gentle realizations that surfaced during the slow walk across, the steady pace, the unchanging view of water, moving patiently below, gave thoughts room to breathe. Many arrived with questions tangled in their minds and left with a clearer sense of what mattered, even if the answers were still incomplete. A woman once crossed just before sunset, carrying a letter folded carefully in her pocket. She had read it many times, yet its meaning still felt uncertain. Halfway across the bridge, she stopped and looked out over the river, watching how the current flowed around rocks without resistance. In that moment, she understood that not every obstacle needed to be fought. Some could be moved around with quiet acceptance. When she continued on, the weight of the letter felt different, still present, but no longer overwhelming. Others came seeking courage. A young traveler, unsure whether to continue onward or turn back, felt the bridge's steady support beneath each hesitant step. The gentle creak of wood, the firmness of stone, seemed to offer reassurance without words. By the time the traveler reached the far side, the fear had softened into determination, shaped by the calm rhythm of the crossing. The bridge did not push anyone toward a choice. It simply offered space, space to pause, to reflect, to listen inwardly. In this way, it became a quiet guide, helping people recognize their own strength rather than replacing it. Each decision made there felt deeply personal, yet connected to something larger, as if the bridge held the wisdom of many journeys before. When night fell and the bridge stood empty once more, it rested in silence, content in its role. The river continued to flow, the stars traced their slow paths above, and the bridge remained, steady, patient, ready to support the next quiet turning point in someone's life. There were evenings when the bridge seemed to glow from within, not with light, but with a feeling of warmth that settled over everything it touched. The air grew still, and the river moved with a softer sound, as if it too were listening. These were the moments when the bridge felt most like a meeting place, not just between shores, but between what had been and what was yet to come. Couples sometimes crossed together at this hour, walking in easy silence. Their steps naturally fell into the same rhythm, guided by the even spacing of the stones. Hands brushed lightly, then rested together, a simple connection made more meaningful by the calm around them. The bridge held their shared quiet without intrusion, offering a space where words were unnecessary. For those walking alone, the bridge provided a gentle companionship. The faint texture of the railing beneath their fingers, the steady presence beneath their feet, created a sense of being supported even in solitude. Thoughts that had felt heavy earlier in the day loosened, drifting like clouds across a fading sky. The bridge did not remove loneliness, but it softened its edges, reminding travelers that solitude could also be a place of peace. As darkness settled, lantern light flickered along the village side, reflected faintly on the water. The bridge connected these small points of brightness, turning them into a quiet path through the night. Each crossing felt deliberate, unhurried, as if time itself had slowed to match the bridge's calm. When the last footsteps faded and night fully claimed the valley, the bridge remained awake in its own way, listening to the river, holding the space between worlds with gentle resolve. It stood ready for whatever the next day might bring, content in its role as a steady link in the long, unbroken flow of life. Some days the bridge carried silence so deep it felt almost tangible. Not an empty silence, but one filled with subtle details, the soft brush of wind along the railings, the distant splash of water against stone, the faint rustle of leaves settling nearby. Crossing during these hours felt like stepping into a pause. The world had intentionally left open, a place where nothing needed to happen for meaning to exist. A man returning from the fields often chose this time to cross. His hands were rough, his body tired, and his thoughts heavy with the weight of routine. As he walked, the bridge seemed to slow him just enough to notice his own breathing again. In the quiet, the ache in his muscles softened, not disappearing, but becoming easier to carry. Each step felt less like effort and more like release. The river below reflected the muted sky, its surface smooth and unbroken. Watching it move so steadily reminded travelers that progress did not always need to be visible to be real. Even when the water looked calm, it was always going somewhere. The bridge echoed this lesson in its stillness, unchanging on the surface, yet deeply involved in the movement of lives across it. Sometimes a breeze would pass through, cool and gentle, carrying the scent of earth and distant trees. It wrapped around those crossing like a quiet reassurance that they were part of something wider and enduring. The bridge did not interrupt these moments. It simply held them, allowing the silence to do its quiet work. When footsteps finally reached the far side, people often felt subtly renewed. Nothing dramatic had occurred, yet something had shifted. A tension eased, a thought settled, a tired heart steadied, and as the bridge returned once more to stillness, it remained ready, patiently holding the space for the next quiet crossing yet to come. As time went on, the bridge became woven into the rhythm of memory itself. People began to measure their lives, not just in years, but in crossings, before the bridge, after the bridge, and moments spent upon it. It was where farewells felt gentler and returns felt more certain. Even those who moved far away carried an image of it in their minds, a quiet line of stone and wood stretching calmly across flowing water. On certain days, families crossed together, their steps layered with different tempos. Children skipped lightly ahead, pausing to wait, while elders followed more slowly, leaning into the steady railings. The bridge accepted all these rhythms without impatience. It seemed to understand that togetherness did not require uniformity, only shared direction. Laughter drifted briefly, then faded into comfortable quiet as everyone moved onward. For some, the bridge marked the edge of courage. Standing at its beginning, they felt the familiar tug of hesitation, the pull of what was known behind them, and the uncertainty ahead. Yet once they stepped onto the stones, that hesitation softened. The bridge offered no guarantees, only steadiness, and often that was enough to take the next step. In the early evening, when shadows lengthened and the light turned golden, the bridge seemed to gather the day's warmth and release it slowly. Crossing then felt like being wrapped in a gentle farewell to daylight. The river shimmered softly, carrying reflections of sky and memory alike, reminding those who paused that nothing truly stood still. Long after footsteps faded, the bridge held these moments within its quiet structure. It remained a keeper of transitions, a place where change felt less abrupt and more like a natural flow. And as night approached once again, the bridge rested calmly, ready to support the next passage, the next memory, the next gentle crossing. There were mornings when the bridge seemed wrapped in thought, as if it too were reflecting on the many lives that passed across it. Fog rolled in softly, obscuring the far shore and turning the crossing into an act of quiet trust. Each step forward revealed only a little more of the path, inviting patience rather than certainty. Those who walked then often felt a strange calm, guided more by feeling than by sight. A teacher from the village crossed on such a morning, carrying books close to her chest. She paused midway, listening to the hush around her. In the fog, the river's sound felt closer, deeper, like a steady heartbeat beneath the world. She realized that understanding did not always arrive all at once. Sometimes it came gradually, just as the far shore slowly emerged through the mist. As the fog lifted, the bridge revealed itself again, familiar, reassuring, unchanged. Light filtered through, soft and diffused, and the valley reappeared as if waking from a shared dream. The bridge held both states with ease, the uncertainty of not seeing clearly and the relief of clarity returning. In the afternoons that followed, the bridge stood open and bright, its surface warmed by sun and time. Yet those who had crossed through fog carried the memory of that softer world within them. It made their later journeys gentler, reminding them that even when the path ahead seemed unclear, steadiness could still guide them forward. When evening came and the bridge settled once more into quiet, it felt fuller somehow, enriched by both the seen and unseen moments of the day. And in that fullness it waited calmly, ready to hold whatever uncertainty or clarity the next crossing might bring. The bridge also knew the sound of waiting. There were afternoons when someone would stand at its edge, not yet ready to cross, simply listening to the river and the wind. Time stretched gently in these moments, unhurried and kind. The bridge did not urge movement, it offered permission to remain still, to let readiness arrive on its own. A young girl once stood there, holding a small bundle of wildflowers. She had gathered them from the far side and now hesitated, unsure of what waited for her beyond the crossing. The bridge felt cool beneath her bare feet, solid and reassuring. She took a deep breath, watching petals drift into the water below, and allowed herself to linger. When she finally stepped forward, it was with a quiet confidence she hadn't felt before. The river below mirrored this patience, flowing steadily without concern for speed. Leaves floated past, some spinning gently in small eddies before continuing onward. Watching them, those waiting on the bridge often realized that pausing did not mean falling behind. It was simply part of the movement, a necessary stillness within motion. Late sunlight brushed the bridge's surface, highlighting worn edges and softened corners. These marks told a story of endurance, of being shaped not by force but by time and care. People noticed these details when they waited, sensing that strength could grow quietly, without display. As shadows lengthened, the bridge seemed to gather the calm of those moments, holding it like a shared breath. Whether crossed or not, the bridge offered its gift freely, a space where waiting felt safe, and where the decision to move forward could emerge naturally, unforced, and whole. As twilight deepened, the bridge often became a place of gentle return. People who had crossed earlier in the day came back, their steps familiar now, their bodies remembering the quiet rhythm of stone and wood. The air cooled, carrying the faint scent of water and evening flowers, and the bridge welcomed them again without distinction. No crossing more important than another, no direction favored. A merchant returning from the open land slowed as he reached the center, the weight of his pack resting more easily on his shoulders. The day had been long, filled with small negotiations and unspoken worries, yet here those concerns loosened their grip. He leaned against the railing, listening to the river's steady voice, and felt a quiet gratitude for the simple act of coming back. The bridge held that gratitude gently, as it had held so many similar moments before. Lanterns flickered to life along the village path, their warm glow stretching toward the bridge like an invitation. Reflections shimmered on the water below, moving slowly, never quite still. The bridge connected these lights with the fading daylight behind, creating a soft passage between what had been done and what was about to rest. Crossing at this hour felt like closing a book for the night, marking a place to begin again tomorrow. Sometimes footsteps overlapped, one person heading out, another returning. They passed quietly at the center, exchanging nods or small smiles, each continuing on their own way. The bridge held these brief meetings with care, understanding that even the shortest connections could carry meaning. When darkness finally settled and the bridge grew still once more, it rested in the calm it had helped create. The river flowed on, the lanterns burned steadily, and the bridge remained, patient, balanced, and quietly ready to welcome the next crossing, whenever it might come. The bridge remained beneath the stars long after he was gone, holding their light and the memory of his pause. It stood calmly, a silent connection not only between two shores, but between the smallness of individual lives and the vastness that surrounded them. In the quiet hours just before dawn, the bridge felt suspended between sleep and waking. The sky held a muted gray-blue tone, and the river below moved almost silently, as if careful not to disturb the moment. Crossing, then, felt intimate, like stepping through a thought before it fully formed. Each footstep sounded softer than usual, absorbed by the cool air and the bridge's patient stillness. A baker from the village crossed at this hour, carrying the faint warmth of rising bread with him. The scent lingered gently, mixing with the damp smell of stone and water. As he walked, he felt the familiar comfort of routine, yet also a subtle sense of beginning. The bridge marked this transition quietly, from night's rest to day's work, holding the calm of one and the promise of the other in perfect balance. The first birds began to stir, their tentative calls echoing lightly across the water. With each sound the world felt a little more awake. The bridge welcomed this gradual return of life, offering the same steady support it always had. It did not rush the morning, it allowed it to arrive at its own pace. Light slowly traced the edges of the bridge, revealing textures softened by time, smooth stones, worn wood, faint marks left by countless crossings. These details felt comforting, reminders that the bridge had carried many mornings before this one and would carry many more. The baker paused briefly at the center, breathing in the cool air, feeling grounded and ready. As he continued on, the bridge remained behind him, holding the last quiet moments of night. Dawn unfolded gently across the valley, and the bridge stood firm within it, once again connecting two worlds, not just of place, but of time, offering a calm passage into whatever the day would bring. With the full arrival of morning, the bridge took on a brighter presence, though it never lost its calm. Sunlight streamed across the valley, catching on the river's surface and scattering into soft, dancing reflections beneath the arches. The air felt lighter now, warmed by promise rather than memory. Crossing at this hour felt like stepping into a gentle flow already in motion, joining a day that had begun without hurry. A pair of siblings crossed together, their footsteps uneven but comfortable. One paused often to look down at the water, the other to look ahead toward the far shore. The bridge held both impulses, the need to reflect and the desire to move forward, without asking either to change. As they walked, the rhythm of their steps slowly aligned, guided by the steady spacing of the stones beneath them. Sounds of life grew clearer, distant voices, the soft clatter of tools, the hum of activity beginning on both sides of the river. Yet the bridge remained a place apart, a gentle corridor where noise softened and movement became mindful. Even in the growing day, it preserved a pocket of quiet, allowing those who crossed to carry calm with them into busier hours. The warmth of the sun settled into the stone, and those who touched the railing felt it linger beneath their palms. It was a subtle comfort, like reassurance that the day would unfold as it should, one moment at a time. The bridge offered this warmth freely, a shared gift gathered from the light above. When the siblings reached the far side, they paused briefly, then continued on with renewed ease. Behind them, the bridge remained exactly as it was, steady, open, and welcoming, ready to hold the next set of footsteps, the next quiet transition between two gently connected worlds. As the day settled into its steady rhythm, the bridge became almost meditative in its constancy. The sun climbed higher, but its light was softened by passing clouds that drifted slowly, casting moving shadows across the stones. These shadows slid gently from one side to the other, mirroring the quiet purpose of the bridge itself, always moving, never rushing. A woman carrying a small bundle of letters crossed during this hour. Each envelope held a different weight of emotion: news, remembrance, hope. She walked slowly, feeling the texture of the stone beneath her shoes, allowing the bridge to set her pace. Halfway across, she stopped, not to read or think, but simply to stand. The river below carried on, unconcerned with what it carried, reminding her that even messages heavy with meaning could be released into the flow of time. The bridge absorbed the warmth of the day, offering it back gently through the soles of her feet. A light breeze passed through, lifting loose strands of her hair and carrying the faint scent of grass and water. In that moment, the bridge felt like a quiet companion, present, supportive, and content to share the silence without asking anything in return. Far below, sunlight flickered across the water in small, bright fragments. Watching them, the woman felt a subtle shift inside her, a loosening of tension she hadn't realized she was holding. When she continued on, her steps felt smoother, guided by a renewed sense of ease. Behind her, the bridge remained unchanged, holding the shape of her pause within its quiet memory. It stood calmly, continuing its work, without acknowledgement or praise, simply connecting, supporting, and offering space for the small, meaningful moments that often passed unnoticed. As afternoon leaned gently toward evening, the bridge seemed to slow the day itself. Light softened, turning warmer and more forgiving, and the air carried a sense of release, as if the hardest efforts were already behind. Crossing at this time felt like exhaling after a long breath, a moment of easing before the quiet of night returned. A young apprentice crossed with tools slung over one shoulder, the faint clink of metal marking each step. The workday had been demanding, hands sore, and thoughts crowded with lessons yet to be mastered. But on the bridge, the steady rhythm of footsteps and the river's calm presence began to untangle those thoughts. Mistakes felt less heavy here, more like part of a longer journey rather than failures to be judged. The sun dipped lower, casting long lines of shadow that stretched across the stones and blended into one another. These shadows did not divide the bridge. They softened it, blurring edges and inviting gentleness. The apprentice paused briefly, watching how light and darkness met without conflict, and felt reassured that growth, too, could be a quiet blending of effort and rest. The breeze cooled, brushing against skin like a gentle reminder to slow down. Sounds from both shores grew more distant, as if the bridge were holding a small pocket of peace just for those crossing. Each step felt intentional, unhurried, grounded in the present moment. When the far shore came into reach, the apprentice felt steadier, more prepared for the evening ahead. The bridge once again returned to its patient stillness, having offered its quiet support without interruption, holding two worlds together as the day gently folded into night. Evening gathered softly around the bridge, wrapping it in layers of dimming light and cooling air. The river below darkened once more, its surface smoothing into long, quiet lines that reflected the fading sky. Crossing at this hour felt slower, as if time itself had chosen to rest alongside the bridge. A pair of older friends crossed together, their steps careful but sure. They had walked this path many times before, sometimes in silence, sometimes in conversation that drifted as gently as the water below. Tonight they spoke little. The bridge did not require words. It offered companionship simply by being there, steady and familiar beneath their feet. Lanterns flickered on again along the village side, their glow stretching toward the center of the bridge. Each light felt like a small promise of warmth and rest ahead. The friends paused near the middle, leaning against the railing, listening to the river's steady murmur. In that sound, they heard the echo of years past and the comfort of time shared. A cool breeze passed through, carrying the scent of night flowers and distant hearth fires. The bridge absorbed these details quietly, holding the layered textures of evening, the end of effort, the beginning of rest. For those crossing, it felt like a gentle threshold between the demands of the day and the calm of night. When they continued on, their steps remained slow, unhurried, as if they wished to extend the moment just a little longer. Behind them, the bridge stayed in place, calm and balanced, ready to welcome the next set of footsteps, holding the evening steady between two resting worlds. Night settled fully now, not all at once, but in soft layers that deepened the quiet. The bridge rested beneath a sky brushed with faint stars and drifting clouds, their slow movement reflected in the dark water below. The air cooled enough to raise a gentle shiver, yet the bridge remained welcoming, its presence steady and reassuring. A lone figure crossed during these hours, footsteps measured and light. The world felt smaller at night, narrowed to the sound of shoes against stone and the whisper of the river beneath. Each step felt intentional, as though the bridge asked for awareness rather than speed. The darkness did not feel threatening here. It felt protective, wrapping the crossing in calm. Somewhere nearby, an owl called once, then fell silent. The sound echoed briefly, then dissolved into the night. The bridge held that echo the way it held everything else, with balance, without disturbance. Those who crossed at this time often felt deeply present, aware of their own breathing, their own weight, their own quiet thoughts. Moonlight slipped between clouds and rested on the bridge in pale streaks. The stones glimmered faintly, revealing a path that felt ancient and enduring. Walking through that light, the figure sensed a connection not only to the far shore, but to all who had crossed before under similar skies, carrying similar quiet hopes. When the crossing was complete, the night closed gently behind them. The bridge remained, calm and unmoving, holding the stillness of the hour. It stood ready through the darkness, patiently connecting two worlds while the valley slept. In the deepest part of the night, when even the wind seemed to rest, the bridge felt wrapped in a profound calm. The world narrowed to subtle sensations, the coolness of stone, the faint vibration of water moving far below, the quiet rise and fall of breath. Crossing at this hour felt almost weightless, as though the bridge carried more than the body. It carried the mind into stillness. A watchman made his slow way across, lantern held low, its light barely brushing the stones. Each step was careful, not from fear, but from respect for the quiet. The bridge responded with unwavering steadiness, its surface familiar beneath his boots. He paused at the center, letting the lantern dim slightly, trusting the bridge to hold him even in near darkness. The river whispered softly, a sound so constant it felt eternal. Listening to it, the watchman felt his thoughts loosen and drift, unbound from the edges of time. The bridge did not interrupt this feeling. It deepened it, offering a place where vigilance could soften into peace without fully letting go. Above, clouds parted briefly, revealing a scatter of stars, their faint light reflected in the water and traced a gentle path across the bridge's worn stones. In that quiet glow, the watchman felt connected to the land, to the night, to all the unseen crossings happening in other places, other times. When he continued on, the lantern's glow faded slowly behind him. The bridge returned to stillness, holding the silence like a careful breath. It remained there through the darkest hours, calm and enduring, ready to support the next quiet step toward morning. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the night began to soften. The bridge sensed this change not through light, but through the subtle shift in the air, a cooling that eased, a silence that grew less absolute. Crossing during this fragile hour felt like moving through a held breath, poised between rest and awakening. A traveler nearing the end of a long journey stepped onto the bridge just before dawn. Fatigue rested deep in his bones, yet the bridge offered a calm strength that supported him effortlessly. Each step felt guided, as if the stones themselves remembered how to carry weary feet. He paused briefly at the center, closing his eyes, letting the quiet seep into him. The river below reflected the faintest hint of color returning to the sky. Deep blues softened into muted grays, then into the promise of something lighter. The bridge held this transition gently, connecting not just two shores, but two moments in time. Standing there, the traveler felt the comfort of knowing that endings and beginnings often shared the same space. A faint breeze stirred, carrying the scent of morning, cool water, distant grass, the first suggestion of warmth. The bridge welcomed it, remaining unchanged, steady beneath the slow return of light. The traveler opened his eyes, feeling grounded, ready for the final steps of his crossing. When he moved on, the bridge remained behind him, calm and balanced, holding the quiet beauty of the moment. It stood as it always had, ready to meet the new day with the same patience it offered the night, gently holding two worlds together as one faded and the other emerged. Dawn arrived fully now, not with urgency but with a slow, confident presence. Light spread across the bridge in soft layers, revealing familiar textures made new again, stone warmed from within, wood catching the glow along its grain. The river answered with a brighter shimmer, its steady movement reflecting the sky's gentle awakening. Crossing at this hour felt like stepping into reassurance, as if the day itself had promised to unfold kindly. A mother crossed with her child, still half asleep, small hand tucked into hers. Their steps were unhurried, guided by the bridge's calm rhythm. The child leaned into the quiet, eyes tracing the light on the water, while the mother felt the ease of routine settling in. The bridge accepted them both, holding the weight of care and trust without strain. Morning sounds gathered softly, distant doors opening, a bird's song growing bolder, the faint clatter of a cart beginning its route. Yet on the bridge, these sounds blended into a gentle backdrop. The crossing remained a pause within motion, a place where the day could be entered with intention rather than haste. Sunlight lingered on the railings, warming palms and easing stiff fingers. The mother paused briefly at the center, breathing in the cool air touched with warmth, feeling gratitude for the simple steadiness beneath her feet. When they continued on, the child's steps grew surer, matching the bridge's quiet confidence. Behind them, the bridge stood bathed in morning light, unchanged and welcoming. It held the calm of dawn like a promise kept, ready to support the next crossing and the next, as the day carried on. As the morning matured, the bridge settled into a gentle hum of life without ever becoming crowded or loud. Sunlight filtered through passing clouds, creating a slow dance of light and shade across the stones. Each shift felt unhurried, as though the bridge and sky were quietly agreeing on the pace of the day. Crossing now carried a sense of balance, neither the freshness of dawn nor the heaviness of afternoon, but a comfortable middle ground. A scholar crossed during this time, scrolls tucked carefully under one arm. His thoughts were busy with ideas, yet the moment his feet touched the bridge, those thoughts began to organize themselves. The steady spacing of stones created a rhythm that soothed the mind. Ideas that had felt scattered found order, not through effort, but through calm presence. The river below moved steadily, sunlight breaking across its surface in soft, shifting patterns. Watching it, the scholar felt reminded that progress did not require strain. The water never hurried, yet it always arrived. The bridge echoed this truth, holding firm while allowing movement to happen naturally. A gentle breeze carried the scent of warm stone and distant fields. It brushed across the bridge like a quiet reassurance, encouraging deep, even breaths. The scholar paused briefly, resting his hand on the railing, feeling the subtle warmth stored within it. In that simple touch, he felt grounded, connected to something enduring and reliable. When he continued on, his steps felt lighter, his thoughts clearer. The bridge returned once more to its patient stillness, content in its role, offering balance, clarity, and calm to all who crossed, holding the space between two worlds with effortless grace. As midday approached, the bridge rested beneath a bright open sky, its presence steady and unassuming. Heat gathered gently, not oppressive, but warming, settling into the stones and rising slowly into the air. The river below moved with the same patient certainty, its surface dotted with soft highlights that drifted and reformed without hurry. Crossing at this hour felt grounded, anchored in the simple reality of being here, now. A gardener crossed carrying a basket of soil-stained tools, the scent of earth following her like a quiet companion. Her hands were tired, yet content, and as she stepped onto the bridge, the rhythm of her walk slowed naturally. The bridge welcomed the weight of her labor, offering steadiness without resistance. Each step felt like a continuation of her work, not separate from it, but gently supported. Cicadas hummed in the distance, their song blending into a steady backdrop that filled the space without overwhelming it. The bridge held this sound easily, letting it pass through like a breath. The gardener paused at the center, gazing down at the water, noticing how even under the strongest light, the river kept its depth and calm. It reminded her that growth happened quietly, often unseen, supported by patience. The warmth of the stone rose through her soles, easing tension she hadn't noticed before. She rested her palm on the railing, feeling its smoothness, worn into comfort by countless hands before hers. In that moment, effort and rest felt balanced, neither demanding more than the other. When she moved on, the bridge remained as it always had, solid, calm, and generous in its stillness. It held the midday light without strain, ready to carry the next set of footsteps, continuing its quiet work of connection, one gentle crossing at a time. By early afternoon, the bridge felt wrapped in a soft, drowsy calm, as though the day itself had slowed to a comfortable pace. Shadows shortened and shifted gently, and the air carried a warmth that invited ease rather than effort. Crossing at this hour felt like moving through a quiet lull, a moment when nothing urgent asked to be done. A musician crossed then, instrument case resting lightly against his back. He had been playing since morning, and his fingers still hummed with remembered melodies. On the bridge, the echo of those sounds faded, replaced by the steady rhythm of footsteps and water. The bridge seemed to listen, absorbing the unspoken music with the same care it gave to everything else. He paused at the center, resting the case against the railing, and let his shoulders relax. The river below offered its own song, low, continuous, unchanging. In that sound, the musician felt his thoughts quiet, melodies rearranging themselves without effort. The bridge held this silence gently, allowing creativity to rest and renew. Sunlight shimmered softly across the water, scattering into bright fragments that drifted away. A breeze passed through, carrying the faint scent of grass and warm stone. Each detail felt layered and slow, as if the world were inviting him to linger just a little longer. When he continued on, his steps felt lighter, his mind clearer. The bridge remained behind him, unchanged, holding the calm of the afternoon like a sustained note, steady, balanced, and endlessly ready to support the next quiet crossing. As the afternoon drifted onward, the bridge seemed to sink deeper into its own quiet confidence. The light softened again, losing its sharpness, and the air carried a gentle stillness that made every sound feel deliberate. Even the river below appeared to slow, its surface smoothing into long, patient lines that reflected the sky like a calm, steady breath. A letter carrier crossed during this hour, satchel resting against his hip, its familiar weight a comfort rather than a burden. He had walked this bridge countless times, yet each crossing felt slightly different, shaped by the mood of the day. Today his steps were unhurried, guided by the bridge's steady presence. The rhythmic tap of his shoes against stone blended with the soft murmur of water, creating a soothing cadence. Midway across, he paused not out of necessity, but out of habit, born from gratitude. From this vantage point, both shores felt equally close, equally distant. The bridge held him perfectly between them, reminding him that his role, carrying messages from one place to another, mirrored the bridge's own quiet purpose. Neither asked for recognition, both simply connected. A light breeze stirred the edges of his coat, carrying the scent of drying grass and warm earth. The bridge felt alive in a subtle way, responsive without movement, strong without effort. In that moment, the letter carrier felt settled, content in the simple certainty of his path. When he continued on, the bridge returned to its calm watchfulness, holding the shape of his pause within its memory. It stood steady in the lengthening afternoon, ready to welcome the next set of footsteps, continuing its gentle work of keeping two worlds quietly, faithfully joined. Late afternoon settled like a soft shawl over the bridge, the light thinning into warm amber tones that clung to stone and wood. The day's edges blurred gently, and the valley seemed to exhale. Crossing at this hour felt tender, as if the bridge were holding the day's last warmth and offering it back in careful measure. A quiet craftsman crossed with sawdust still clinging to his sleeves. His hands carried the memory of shaping and sanding, of patience learned through repetition. As his boots met the familiar stones, The bridge welcomed the weight of his work without complaint. Each step felt deliberate, grounded, the rhythm steady enough to let his thoughts settle into place. The river below caught the low sun and turned it into a slow ribbon of light. Ripples widened and softened, carrying reflections downstream as if delivering them gently to the evening. The craftsman paused at the center, resting his forearms on the railing, feeling the bridge's calm solidity meet his tired muscles. In that quiet contact, effort transformed into ease. Shadows stretched and merged, and the air cooled just enough to invite deeper breaths. Distant sounds, voices, tools being set down, doors closing, arrived softened and far away. On the bridge, there was only the present moment, the warmth fading from stone, the steady pulse of water, the certainty of support beneath his feet. When he moved on, the bridge remained in its unhurried stillness, holding the last light of day like a careful promise. It stood ready for the evening's crossings, continuing its gentle work, steady, patient, and kind, keeping two worlds together as the day leaned quietly toward rest. Evening returned once more, familiar yet never quite the same. The bridge welcomed it with quiet grace, its surface cooling as the sun slipped lower and the sky deepened into soft shades of rose and blue. The river reflected these colors in slow motion, stretching them into long, wavering bands that drifted gently beneath the arches. Crossing now felt reflective, like turning the pages of a well-loved book toward its closing chapters. A teacher crossed at this hour, lessons of the day still lingering in her thoughts. Her voice had been steady and patient all afternoon, guiding others forward, and now the bridge offered her the same kindness in return. Each step felt like an unspoken thank you, the stones firm and familiar beneath her feet. She slowed at the center, letting the quiet gather around her like a gentle cloak. The air carried the scent of cooling earth and distant cooking fires. Somewhere beyond the river, laughter drifted briefly, then faded, replaced by the soft chorus of evening insects beginning their song. The bridge held these sounds together without strain, blending effort and rest into a single, calming harmony. As twilight deepened, lanterns flickered on once again, their light trembling softly on the water. The teacher rested her hand on the railing, feeling the day's warmth slowly leaving the stone. In that simple touch, she felt a release of responsibility, of noise, of the need to be anything other than present. When she continued on, the bridge remained behind her, balanced and serene. It stood quietly between fading day and arriving night, holding both without resistance, ready to support the next gentle crossing in the long, unbroken flow of time. Night unfolded slowly, like a curtain drawn with care, and the bridge settled into its familiar role beneath the stars. The sky deepened into velvet darkness, scattered with soft points of light that shimmered faintly above and below, reflected in the river's patient flow. Crossing at this hour felt hushed and personal, as though the bridge invited each traveler to carry only what was necessary and leave the rest behind. A young couple crossed quietly, their footsteps gentle, almost synchronized. They spoke in low tones, words few and thoughtful, allowing the silence to fill the spaces between them. The bridge welcomed their closeness, its steady presence supporting both the space they shared and the individual thoughts each carried. Halfway across, they paused, leaning lightly against the railing, watching the water move as it always had, forward, untroubled. A cool breeze passed through, brushing skin and fabric with a calming touch. It carried the scent of night air and river stone, clean and grounding. The bridge absorbed the chill without complaint, holding firm, reminding those who crossed that stability did not require warmth or light. It existed on its own, constant and reliable. Far from the bridge, the village lights dimmed, and the open land beyond the river rested in shadow. Yet here, between them, the bridge felt alive in its stillness, a quiet line of connection holding the night together. The couple resumed their walk, steps unhurried, comforted by the steady certainty beneath them. When they reached the far shore, the bridge remained behind, calm and watchful. It stood beneath the stars, holding the quiet of the night like a shared secret, ready to welcome the next crossing with the same gentle patience it always had. In the late hours of the night, the bridge felt wrapped in a deeper stillness, as though the world had drawn closer around it. The river flowed in near silence, its movement sensed more than heard. Moonlight brushed the stones faintly, revealing just enough of the path to invite trust. Crossing at this hour felt like moving through a dream, guided by memory and quiet instinct. A healer crossed alone, cloak pulled close against the cool air. The day had been long, filled with listening and care, and now the bridge offered a space where she could finally rest from holding others' pain. Each step was slow and deliberate, and with every one, the weight she carried seemed to ease, settling gently into the bridge's steady support. She paused at the center, closing her eyes, feeling the solid presence beneath her feet. The bridge asked nothing of her, made no demands. It simply held her, allowing the river's endless whisper to wash through her thoughts. In that stillness, she felt replenished, reminded that even those who give endlessly must sometimes be carried themselves. A cloud passed over the moon, softening the light, and for a moment the bridge seemed to disappear into shadow. Yet it remained, unchanged and reliable, felt through balance and trust rather than sight. When the moon reappeared, the stones glimmered again, quietly reaffirming that what endures does not need to be seen to be known. When she continued on, her steps felt lighter, steadier. The bridge remained behind her, calm and enduring, holding the depth of night with ease, faithfully connecting two worlds while the rest of the valley slept. The night moved closer to its quiet end, though it showed no urgency to leave. The bridge rested in a calm that felt earned, like a long exhale after holding steady for many hours. The river below continued its soft, unbroken journey, dark and reassuring, carrying reflections that shimmered and faded without sound. Crossing at this hour felt deeply soothing, as if the bridge were inviting the world to slow even further. A solitary walker crossed with no destination pressing on their mind. Their steps were guided not by need but by a gentle desire to move, to feel the ground respond beneath them. The bridge met each footfall with familiar strength, offering a sense of being quietly accompanied. In the stillness, even small sounds, the brush of fabric, a careful breath, felt meaningful and complete. The air carried a cool clarity now, refreshing rather than cold. It slipped across the bridge, touching stone and skin alike, leaving behind a sense of calm alertness. The walker paused at the center, looking out into the dark, not searching for anything, simply allowing the moment to exist. The bridge held that pause with care, steady and patient. Far above, stars shifted almost imperceptibly, marking time in their own slow language. The bridge felt aligned with them, unmoving yet always present, constant within change. In this shared stillness, worries lost their edges, and thoughts drifted gently toward rest. When the walker continued on, the bridge returned to its quiet watch. Ooh, it stood ready, as it always had, holding the deep night without strain, connecting two resting worlds while awaiting the soft return of morning. A faint hint of change touched the air, subtle enough to be felt before it could be seen. The bridge sensed it in the way the night loosened its grip, in the way the river's surface caught just a little more light than before. This was the hour when darkness and morning began to quietly share the space between breaths. Crossing then felt gentle and hopeful, like standing at the edge of a new thought. An early riser stepped onto the bridge, wrapped in a light shawl, footsteps soft and unhurried. The world was still mostly asleep, and the bridge offered a safe, familiar path through the quiet. Each step felt cushioned by calm, the stones cool but welcoming beneath tired feet. The bridge seemed to recognize this moment, holding it with special care. A pale glow gathered along the horizon, barely noticeable at first. The river responded with faint reflections, stretching them slowly toward the bridge's center. Standing there, the early riser felt a sense of renewal, not dramatic or loud, but steady and sure. The bridge mirrored that feeling perfectly, unchanged, yet always ready for what came next. The breeze shifted, carrying the promise of morning, clean, fresh, and lightly scented with water and grass. It brushed across the bridge, lifting the edges of the shawl, encouraging a deeper breath. In that breath, the early riser felt gratitude for simple continuity, for paths that remained, for structures that held. When they moved on, the bridge stayed behind in quiet anticipation. It rested beneath the slowly brightening sky, patient and enduring, prepared to welcome the day once more, continuing its timeless work of holding two worlds together. Morning gathered itself softly now, like light finding its way through a curtain. The bridge felt this arrival in the gentle warming of its stones and the way the air shifted from cool to comfortably mild. The river answered with brighter movement, its surface catching the new day in quiet ripples. Crossing at this hour felt reassuring, as if the world had returned with a promise to continue gently. A fisher crossed, carrying a simple net, its weight light but familiar. He moved with the ease of habit, steps naturally aligning with the bridge's steady rhythm. The bridge welcomed him without comment, offering the same calm support it always had. Halfway across, he paused to watch the water, noting how the light danced across it differently each morning, never repeating itself, yet always beautiful. Birdsong grew clearer now, layered and unhurried. Each note seemed to rest briefly on the bridge before drifting onward. The sound filled the space without disturbing it, adding to the sense that everything was arriving exactly when it should. The bridge held this harmony easily, steady beneath the growing day. Warmth spread slowly through the stone, easing stiffness and inviting a deeper sense of comfort. The fisher rested his hand on the railing, feeling the familiar texture, smoothed by time and countless crossings. In that simple touch he felt grounded, ready for the quiet work ahead. As he continued on, the bridge returned to its patient stillness, bathed in early light. It stood firm and calm, welcoming morning fully now, prepared once again to support the many gentle crossings still to come. The day unfolded with a calm confidence, and the bridge settled easily into the renewed rhythm of light and movement. Morning had fully arrived now, yet it carried no rush, only a quiet assurance that everything was finding its place. Sunlight rested gently along the railing, warming it just enough to feel kind beneath waiting hands. The river moved with a brighter voice, still soft, still patient, carrying the reflections of sky and bridge together downstream. A young messenger crossed during this time, footsteps light, posture upright with purpose. Though there was a destination ahead, there was no anxiety in the journey. The bridge seemed to temper urgency, reminding the traveler that movement did not need tension to be meaningful. With each step, the sound of the crossing, stone meeting soul, breath meeting air, created a steady, calming rhythm. The breeze carried scents of fresh morning work, clean wood, distant smoke, damp earth drying in the sun. These layers drifted across the bridge and blended into something whole and grounding. The messenger slowed at the center, gazing out briefly, feeling the balance of standing exactly between where they had been and where they were going. In that pause, the bridge offered its quiet lesson once more, that purpose and peace could exist together. That forward motion did not require haste. The stones beneath felt solid and reassuring, unchanged by the countless lives they had carried, yet enriched by every one of them. When the messenger continued on, steps still light, but steadier somehow, the bridge returned to its calm watchfulness. It remained open and ready, holding the present moment gently, prepared to guide the final crossings of the story toward their quiet completion. As the morning matured once more, the bridge felt complete in its rhythm, as if it had gently closed a circle begun the night before. Light settled evenly across its length, no longer shifting quickly, but resting with intention. The river below moved with familiar confidence, reflecting the bridge as both image and truth, steady, continuous, whole. A caretaker crossed at this hour, carrying nothing in her hands but holding much in her heart. Her walk was slow and thoughtful, shaped by compassion and quiet strength. The bridge welcomed her presence, sensing the depth of her care, offering support without question. Each step felt like a shared understanding between traveler and path. She paused at the center, placing her palm flat against the stone, feeling its warmth and permanence. In that moment, the bridge seemed to echo her own purpose, to hold, to support, to remain steady through change. The river whispered below, affirming that even the most gentle rolls carried immense power when practiced with patience. Sunlight filtered through passing clouds, briefly softening the world before brightening again. The bridge held both states effortlessly, mirroring the balance between effort and rest, giving and receiving. The caretaker breathed deeply, feeling renewed by the quiet exchange. When she continued on, her steps were calm and sure. The bridge remained behind her, unchanged yet deeply fulfilled, standing ready for the final crossings ahead, still connecting two worlds, still offering its silent, enduring strength. The bridge now felt steeped in a gentle completeness, as though it carried the memory of an entire day within its stones. Light rested calmly across it, neither new nor fading, simply present. The air was clear and still, and the river flowed with a familiar, soothing cadence that seemed to echo the bridge's own quiet certainty. Crossing at this time felt reflective, like arriving at an understanding without needing words. An older traveler crossed slowly, pausing more often than most. Each step was deliberate, taken with care and appreciation. The bridge met those steps with unwavering support, its surface steady and kind. The traveler rested at the center, hands on the railing, feeling the subtle warmth stored within the stone, a warmth gathered from countless sunrises and carried patiently through time. Looking out, Both shores appeared balanced, neither calling louder than the other. The bridge held this perfect middle ground, reminding the traveler that life was often lived not in extremes, but in these quiet spaces of connection. The river below continued its endless journey, unconcerned with beginnings or endings, offering comfort in its constancy. A soft breeze moved across the bridge, stirring clothing and thought alike. It carried no urgency, only presence. In that moment the traveler felt deeply at ease, content to stand exactly where they were, supported by something that asked nothing and gave everything. When the traveler finally continued on, the bridge returned once more to stillness. It remained poised for the final passage, holding its calm purpose intact, ready to complete the quiet story it had been telling all along. The bridge entered a moment beyond time, where all the crossings seemed to overlap gently, like layers of soft light. Morning and night, joy and weariness, beginnings and returns, all felt present at once. The stones were warm and cool together, shaped by sun and shadow, by patience and endurance. Standing upon it now felt like standing within the heart of the story itself. No single traveler crossed in this moment. Instead, the bridge seemed to remember everyone, every careful step, every pause at the center, every quiet breath taken while looking down at the river. The water below flowed steadily, carrying reflections of sky and stone, as if holding the bridge's memory and carrying it onward into the world. The air was calm, filled with a deep sense of belonging. The bridge did not strain to hold two worlds together. It simply did, as naturally as breathing. Village and open land, past and future, struggle and hope all met here without conflict. This place between became a place of wholeness. If one listened closely, there was no sound of effort, only balance. The bridge had fulfilled its purpose not by changing the worlds it connected, but by allowing them to meet gently, again and again. It taught that strength could be quiet, that support could be steady, and that connection did not require force. And as the moment softened and settled, the bridge remained exactly as it had always been, present, enduring, and kind, ready for every step yet to come, holding two worlds together in perfect, peaceful harmony. Thank you for spending this quiet time here, walking slowly across the bridge that held two worlds together. I hope the story helped your breathing slow, your thoughts soften, and your body feel a little more at ease. Wherever you are listening, from the U.S., Europe, or anywhere else in the world, and whatever hour of night or early morning has found you, I'm grateful you shared this moment with me. If you found comfort here, please remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It truly helps the channel grow. Now allow yourself to rest, knowing that, like the bridge, you are supported, steady, and safe.